Number three is this: in connection to having more money, they have a growing middle class. India's middle class is expected to grow significantly in the next decade, which again goes back to our first and second points also, which will increase India's spending. And I think if you notice it also, if you go to other developed markets, the largest part of the population is the middle class. And if for a country to transition into something that's developing, into something that's developed, I think that's one of the most important things. There will be a lot of rich people, similar to developed countries and developing countries. There's rich people who own a large chunk of the resources and the income for a particular country. But the difference between developed nations and developing countries is that developing countries have a very, very small middle class. Hey guys, so in this video, I want to talk about and give you 10 reasons on why India could be the biggest economy in the world in 10 years. And this is interesting as investors because it's nice to know, number one, macroeconomic event, because in a way also it could help you position your investments, not just for 2023, but how you could possibly build a base over the next frontier or the next economy for the years to come. Also, if you'll take a look at India's GDP for 2021, which is about 3.17 trillion US dollars, it already places it fifth globally. It's number one, very, very large population. India has about 1.3 billion people, which is a very significant consumer base which can drive economic growth. And if you notice how China did it also, they had very, very large economy, primarily also because they had cheap labor and a very, very large population. They implemented their one-child policy, which has stagnated their population growth, and that's why India has surpassed China as well. And for that reason gives India a larger base of people that are working, but not just that, it increases their consumer-driven population. Number two is rapid urbanization. India's population is increasingly moving into the cities, which creates opportunities for businesses and drives demand for goods and services. If you notice it from other developed countries, that has been the narrative also. The richer they get, they want to live in a more efficient basis, in a way that they're closer to hospitals, schools, malls, transportation, airports, and everything else in between. And I think that's the product also of people having more money. Number three is this: in connection to having more money, they have a growing middle class. India's middle class is expected to grow significantly in the next decade, which again goes back to our first and second points also, which will increase India's spending. And I think if you notice it also, if you go to other developed markets, the largest part of the population is the middle class. And if for a country to transition into something that's developing, into something that's developed, I think that's one of the most important things. There will be a lot of rich people, similar to developed countries and developing countries. There's rich people who own a large chunk of the resources and the income for a particular country. But the difference between developed nations and developing countries is that developing countries have a very, very small middle class. But for developed nations, the middle class is very, very big. And that's what will happen to India as well. Number four is this, and I've mentioned this in the intro: India's very strong economic growth. India's economy has been growing at a very robust rate, and this is expected to continue over the next decade. Why is it supposed to continue over the next decade, and why is this the trajectory for India over the next few years? That's number five. Number five is because they have a diversified economy. India has diversified its economy with a mix of agriculture, which will help their consumption-driven economy, manufacturing, which could also help them for exports, and also in a way people in the country will buy bits and pieces of what they manufactured. Service sectors, which I'll explain later why is it massive as well, which reduces its dependence to any one sector. So there are countries that are highly dependent on oil. If something happens to that particular industry, it will affect the entire economy of that particular country. And that's why if you look at how Dubai, they know that oil will not last forever. That's why decades before that they were pushing towards tourism, and right now that's why they're the hub also for crypto, Web3, and blockchain. Everyone's headed to Dubai. They're doing their best so that they're not highly dependent on oil or natural gases as well. And that's what India is. Number six is this, which is also I think similar to what's happening in the Philippines, is that they have a very, very young workforce. India has a large population, but that population is young. That young population is entering the workforce which will increase productivity. And as it increases productivity, it also increases consumption, which will fuel economic growth. Please do remember this, that the economy is just one man produces, another man consumes. If there are more people already now earning more, they'll actually consume more, which will allow other businesses in the country to produce more as well, and the economy will just keep on turning and turning and turning and turning. Highly connected to number 6 also is this. It's not just that they have a very young population, but they have favorable demographics. What do I mean by that? Relatively young, but their median age is 27, which means that it's not young that it's dependent on their parents. It's not young that they're still studying. It's young that they're earning already. Think about it, 27 years old, if they graduate university at 21, 22, 23 years old already, that means that they have had significant level of experience, they're earning a bit, they're not entry level, but they're also spending. And look at it from this perspective. If they retire up until 60, and I've said this also even for the Philippines, 37, 47, 57, they have 30 plus years of massive growth in terms of working and earning, and in the same way, spending as well. Number 8 is increasing digitalization. India is becoming increasingly digitized with a growing number of people using smartphones and the internet, which is driving economic growth. So think about services that could be done off the internet, think about e-commerce, and think about crypto, metaverse, and NFTs as well. Number 9 is this, and I think this is something that for countries to really develop and push further, it's not just about the private sector, but it's about also the public sector working hand in hand with businesses, the common citizen, and also the government pushing it further. Number 9 is reforms and liberalization. What do I mean by that? The Indian government has implemented various economic reforms and liberalization measures which have helped improve the business environment. So remember this, that if it's more feasible, if it's more attractive to foreign investors, then it's easy for money to come into the country as well. India is competing with other countries also, like for example in the Philippines, we're fighting up against IT practitioners in India. We're also fighting against people in the BPO industry as well. So the government has created measures for more and more and more and more and more investments to come their way and for it to become more attractive as well. And lastly, number 10 is this, growing influence in the world. India is becoming an increasingly important player in the global stage, with growing influence in areas of trade and diplomacy, which will support economic growth. So those are 10 reasons on why I believe India will be the largest economy in the world in 10 years' time. And you have to consider also how they're getting a lot of the outsourcing jobs as well, which is helping spur economic growth for them too. And again, things like this will allow you also to somehow know if you're gonna do your research on your investments, looking at macro trends, looking at where the money is going from a country perspective will help you also deploy capital from that ideology. Again, it's not a one-size-fits-all strategy, but that's what I do. I try to look at where the money is flowing around the world, and it's nice to position in countries where there's massive growth that's happening. So I hope you guys got a lot from this. Do you think India will be the #1 economy in the next 10 years? Or do you think China and the US will continually hold its ground as well? Put them in the comment section. If you guys have any questions, put them down below as well. I'll try my best to be able to answer you and make content off of those videos. But if you made it up until this point, appreciate it if you could press the like button, could subscribe, share this video, put a comment down below. And if you want to learn more about everything else from the stock market to crypto, I've written 5 books about it. Check it out in the description below, as well as seminars that you could actually try, and I do hope it adds value to you as well. That's it for now. Marvingermo. I hope this video helps you trade well, trade strong, trade smart. See you all again soon, and God bless you all.